Good morning. Welcome to the special joint board meeting here at Berkeley, July 22nd, 2014. We'll now have roll call. And the time is 10:15.
Okay, we started that. I'll put you on speaker. We're starting now. Okay, we just started. Mr. Larry, Mr. Lawrence Bashalti, absent. Harry Daniel, absent. Claudia Georges,
Present.
present. Lydia Hendricks,
Present.
present. Wilma Mars Monsanto,
Present.
present. Arturo Watlington Jr., present. Alicia Wells,
Here.
present. Liliana Bilardo de O'Neill,
Present.
Adelbert Bryan, temporarily out of the room. Ms. Moorhead is on the phone, she just called in. Mr. Roland Molina, he's outside. Rupert Ross, W. Ross, am I correct? No, but I'm present. Rupert Ross Jr., present. Glenn Webster, absent. Raymond Williams, absent. On the phone also. Okay. For the record, Ms. Moorhead and Mr. Mr. Williams and Ms. Moorhead is on the phone. They cannot make a quorum by phone. We now elect Mr. Moorhead. Mr. Molina, present, and Mr. Webster, present. Okay, we do have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'd like for us to take a moment of silence for Mrs. Elise Bailey, a member of the election system for many years who passed, and she was 100 years old. Moment of silence, please. And not for the record only. If you're making a motion, please get the motion form to do so. I have asked Member Hendricks to be the timekeeper. Persons will be given at appropriate place, appropriate time to make their presentation. Mrs. Forbes, would you introduce your staff?
Good morning, Caroline Fox, Supervisor of Elections.
Good morning, Nephrology Bardell, Deputy Supervisor, St. Thomas, St. John.
Good morning, Genevieve Whitaker, Deputy Supervisor for the St. Clair District.
We also have here Mr. Angel Bouquet and the Video Assistant, St. Thomas, St. John Board. Madam Chair, so that we can, I think, for us, or for me at least, I think maybe the most important item on this agenda is the appeal of Mr. Molito A. Smith regarding the eligibility of one of the candidates for the gubernatorial team, Mr. Basil. So at this time I'd like to make a motion to reorder the agenda and then to bring up for our first initial discussion item D under new business, which is the candidate Molito A. Smith Jr.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of reordering the agenda D? D lowercase d would now be DA. All in favor?
I am not voting on it.
All in favor?
Wait. No.
Roll call on the motion.
Yeah. Yes.
Before you take a vote, and I understand you're trying to reorder the agenda. We don't have the agenda in front of us, but my other concern before we continue with our participation in this meeting is my phone, but not both my phones, because there would be no way to verify the person on the phone, the person on the phone, but we could obviously vouch for seeing each other. We're in the same room. So I would, after this motion, I just want to have people entertain, because I don't know, how effective it will be for our participation to waive the motions for participants, because we can verify each other's existence and presence at this meeting. So, go ahead with what you do now, because we got this and vote on the motion. We need a second or vote down that or vote up on what I'm proposing.
Okay.
Roll call on the motion.
Mr. Lawrence Harris Schulte, absent. Mr. Harry Daniels, absent. Claudia Georges,
Yes.
Lydia Hendricks,
Yes.
Wilma Mark Monsanto,
Yes.
Drew Watkington Jr., yes. Alicia Wells,
Yes.
Liliana Belade O'Neill,
No.
Adelbert Bryan, absent. Lisa Moorhead on the phone. Roland Molina. Here. No, yes or no?
Oh, sorry. I was reading the...
To reorder the agenda.
No. On the order
Mr. Rupert Ross? No. Mr. Glenn Webster?
Yes.
Raymond Williams on the phone. Madam Chair? I think recording right. 6 yeas, 3 nays, 3 absent.
Okay, so now we have on the new business the candidate Molito Smith's appeal. Molito Smith appeal.
I have a motion, I propose the motion, I'd like to restate it if I could.
Madam Chairman, a question, please.
Yes. Hold on a minute.
I said Madam Chairman.
I just tell them hold on. So she couldn't.
Okay, I need to know what's going on, because nobody have said who is on the phone.
I'm
I don't know
sorry.
who's talking.
I think I
don't know
did.
what's going
I think
on,
I did.
and have a right to
I
know.
think I said both Mr. Williams and Ms. Moorhead is on the phone. They asked that they asked for this time, that this meeting be at this time today, and that they made themselves available by phone to listen in. I think what Attorney Moorhead is attempting to do now is to ask the board to waive their physical presence for them to be able to vote.
Is that what she's asking?
I think that's what she's about to ask. Is that correct?
I asked to restate it. What I'm asking is to waive the procedural rule just for this instance to allow Mr. Williams and I to vote, because the only reason we, and I think I was on that committee, we said that we're not going to entertain votes by phone because one person will call in, there'll be nobody to verify that the one person said they were. It's a little nonsensical to me, but Mr. Williams is here and I'm here. He could say he was here. I mean, obviously don't recognize my voice, but I can vouch that he's here. And for the purpose of only this meeting, I'm asking that procedural rule be waived.
I need some legal opinion on that, because I recall Member Watlington and Member Bryan turning the phone off when I called, and they know my voice, so I'm going to get some legal opinion on this.
Well, hold on a minute, Tony. Ms. Moorhead. I think the prudent thing to do would basically, since we one of the main crux of the item that we're going to be dealing with first is we're going to listen to Attorney Salisbury for her explanation, I believe, and I believe she'll be the one who would give us advice as to whether or not it's proper for us to do that or not to do that. I think, and then if we want to vote, then we can vote on it.
Well, I mean, whether it's proper or not, it's a board decision.
I agree, but I think...
No, I hear you. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but the longer the meeting goes on without us being able to participate, the less purpose for us to participate.
Yeah. Okay. Madam Chair, you spoke before Attorney Salisbury.
Yes, I'll have a recess for a few minutes when I get Attorney Salisbury.
Huh?
And Mr. Bowles, good to see you being good on that.
We in recess?
Yes.
774-56, 774-5666.
So working. Yeah, we just shut off all the time to the right. We have the votes, we have the vote. And then we want to make a motion on
How much recess we have?
until we can get the attorney Salisbury on the phone. A few minutes.
Huh? Wait up.
Sorry, break room for doing it.
Huh?
Tony Salisbury don't vote in the board, right?
No.
You got a vote in the board?
No.
I don't vote how we want and
No.
Still there?
Yeah, we're still here. Yeah, we're still here. We're in a recess. We're on a recess.
Okay.
how many people required for quorum for the board? And each member from each district
From each member.
to make, okay.
Yeah.
So what I did.
We have a quorum.
What we did for the final council?
No, we dealing with the appeal.
I am dealing with this because I agree that what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with whether somebody can stay on the phone and vote.
No, we dealing with the appeal.
No. Go ahead.
No, the motion is that
No,
they
they
want
have-
to make a motion, so we.
We didn't make a motion wasn't made, they make the motion.
What we write down?
We call Attorney Salisbury
That's the one.
on the issue of the appeal, whether or not we have jurisdiction to hear the appeal. And if we do have jurisdiction, then it's in our hands as to what we're going to do about
So
it.
if we read the code and understand the process, we'll stop us from doing things. I put it in the agenda, what put it in the agenda?
Because a formal document was sent to you, to me, and to Ms. Wells.
What
And then,
1847 said?
huh?
What does 1847
You
say?
tell me. You have
You're
your
the lawyer, I'm the lawyer.
you think you're a lawyer, so read it.
I think that is
Well, then
not
what you asking me?
Just ask you a simple question.
Ask the lawyer. Salisbury is the lawyer.
She will tell me.
Okay, I'm not your lawyer.
Is it?
No,
is this
wait some
what-
time.
No, I'm not. I ain't read no legal opinion.
He's a legal opinion.
I am not. I have a vote just like you.
I know, but that's why we should vote according to the statute.
But that's good, but I'm saying you could vote on the statute, say, all if you want to have a legal opinion.
From who?
Or council.
I waste
Not
some
working?
time. You know what, Dr. Romito, ask the council. Why does it have to come for a quick agenda? That's what I should have done. You're so smart down here. You come here to know the agenda that I put out meeting from 6 different times. St. Thomas is the meeting, St. Croix is the meeting. St. Thomas is the meeting, St. Croix is the meeting. Then you come to let the find out if something is on the agenda. What the hell are you dealing with? Attorney Salisbury, please.
Begin recording after the tone. When finished, you may hang up or press the pound key for further action.
Here you go, sir.
I have a say.
You have a cell phone?
You have it?
Attorney Salisbury?
Good morning.
Yes?
So we're now back on the record. We have Attorney Salisbury on the line. Secretary, would you please let her know our concern?
Good morning, Attorney Salisbury. We're in our meeting on St. Croix. We have a quorum. We have 2 members on the by phone in the mainland United States. That's Member Williams and Member Moorhead. We have at the elections conference. We have two things right now on the table. Well, one thing on the table, which we just reordered the agenda to move up the appeal of Mr. Molito Smith regarding the eligibility of Lieutenant Governor candidate Basil Hartley. 1. 2, Attorney Moorhead is suggesting, and she hasn't made a motion yet, but they would like for us to temporarily suspend our rules to allow both of them to participate by phone and vote.
You there?
I'm here.
Yes. So so it's in your court in terms of the first one and then the second one.
You're asking my opinion?
Well, on the first issue of the appeal of Mr. Molito Smith, the appeal to the board, the joint board, the decision of Ms. Fox that Mr. Basil Hartley is an eligible candidate.
Okay. I must be missing something. My agenda is showing it as the first order of business. So
We reordered the agenda. We reordered the agenda.
Okay.
So that this is now the first item on the agenda.
Okay.
So that's why.
And you're talking about suspending the board's rules, so...
No. The first thing we're talking about is the issue of whether or not we have the authority to, in fact, hear an appeal of the supervisor's decision on the eligibility of Basil Hartley. That would be the first item. The second item that has been bandied about is whether or not the two members who are attending an election conference can, in fact, participate and vote by phone. Yes. We're temporarily waiving the rules for today because two of them are in the presence of one another and attending an election conference. So we need your opinion on both items. The first one being the appeal of Molito Smith.
It's my understanding that the objection to his, or the question about Mr. Otley's candidacy was written in a letter to the supervisor and also a separate letter to the board or board members. Is that correct?
Correct.
So at a minimum, the letter needs to be responded to. Whether or not that response is a formal appeal or hearing of the supervisor's decision is a whole other story. The board does have the power, I'm trying to find it here, to, in section 47, investigate election irregularities and violations of the title. So under that power, I believe we certainly hear the circumstances involved in this case and the issues that candidate Smith has presented and how the supervisor handles Mr. Otley's candidacy. If you agree with the supervisor's decision, there really isn't anything else to do. If you do not, then we can discuss what, if anything, needs to be done. That sounds appropriate?
Well, it's up for the members to decide.
That's what it'll happen.
Question. Question of the attorney, please.
Okay, I know she can hear you. I can try to repeat. Yes, we're hearing you. Member Moyet wants to ask a question. And I will repeat her question since she's on my cell phone.
Hello?
Yes, Member Moyet wants to ask a question, but she's speaking through my cell phone, so I'll repeat it loud so you can hear it. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, the question that I have is, once the supervisor makes a decision with respect to somebody's eligibility, I thought within 10 days that had to be challenged by the law, 5 days it had to be challenged by the court. At court.
Yes.
Do you prefer if we call you at the office?
Well, I'm not sure whose phone cut out. Can I call?
Yeah. Hold on a minute, Attorney. I'm ahead. Yeah, Attorney Salisbury was happening. Attorney Moyet was speaking at the same time, trying to ask a question. So, could you just hold on? Can you repeat it now again? She's back on the line, but she had gotten cut out. Go ahead, Attorney. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not exactly sure when the...
No. Attorney Salisbury, hold on a minute. Yeah. Hold on a minute, Attorney Salisbury.
Stop calling me attorney and then she won't get confused. My name's Lisa. My question of Attorney Salisbury is my understanding with respect to qualifications for candidates that are solo in the purview of the supervisor, and that by law, any decision that the supervisor may have to be appealed within 5 days after this report.
Okay.
That is separate and apart from the board's ability to make investigations into election irregularities. If the election is talking about somebody
Okay. All right. She came off the line temporarily. I'm going to try to make sure I repeat what you said to her clearly. And if I don't say it right, or you think I'm misstating your position, please correct me.
I will do that. Thank you. I'm sure that position as well.
Okay. Attorney Salisbury.
Yes.
Okay. Miss Moorhead and Mr. Moorhead. I'm sorry, Miss Moorhead and Mr. Williams wants to express the position that is their understanding that the qualifications of a candidate, it's the sole purview of the supervisor of elections. And if in fact someone wants to contest such qualification of a candidate, they had a time specific to do so, and the board does not have the authority to review that decision, but rather the review is to the Superior Court. District Court.
And let me just add one thing.
Well,
repeated it pretty much the same way. The only other thing I would add is that we have to, she is quoting a statute that relates to our ability to do investigations with respect to election irregularities. There's been no election. We're talking just about qualifications and the specific law. And I don't have
okay, no problem.
in front of me. I'm sure Mr. Ross will quote
No problem. He's looking at it yet. No. And she wants to add that there is a specific difference between Section 47, which is a review of election irregularities, as opposed to the qualification of candidates, and that there should be a distinction made in our deliberation on this matter.
I don't disagree. I do believe that the vetting of the candidates is the purview of the supervisor. The only reason I believe the board is together today is due to the letter of direction to the board. If you all decide that the appropriate response is exactly what Ms. Moorhead just said, I think that is justifiable in the code.
I'm sorry.
She has agreed with your position.
Okay, but she's saying that, further saying that maybe what the court should do is just respond to this letter and tell them that. I mean, I didn't get the end of what
Well, initially she said that because a letter was written, they required that we should give a written response. I will, since one was addressed to me, I will, or the joint board will, based upon what we do today.
Okay.
For the second part,
But yes, sir.
Was the letter addressed to the joint board chair or just to the district board chair?
It was three different letters. Three of the same letters. All starting with their Chairman Brian. However, one was addressed to Miss Alicia Wells as the joint board chair, and one was addressed to Arturo Watlington Jr. as district board chair of St. Thomas, and one was addressed to, but all started there, their Chairman Brian. Okay.
Member Ross?
Point of information.
Can I add one more thing?
Well, Mr. Brian wanna do chair.
Wait a minute,
Hold on, ma'am.
Attorney Salisbury?
There's just one more section of the code I want to point out, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the direction of the board, but under the supervisor's section of the code, section 4, it says the supervisor is subject to the direction, control, and supervision of the board. Then below that is where it has the power to receive and determine the sufficiency of nomination decisions.
Okay.
Member Ross?
What you are saying is that there's a section under section 4 that says the supervisor is under the direction and the supervision of the board.
Excuse me, Member Mohan.
Hold on a minute, hold on.
Member
Somebody
Ross?
else wants to say something.
I just wanted to state for the record that we are referencing section 412 that deals with objections to nomination petitions and papers. For those who want to review it.
Okay, Member Brian?
Can I speak now?
Member Brian?
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I need to explain my position clearly, since Member Moorhead and Mr. Williams have theirs. The statute is clear. The board is the employee of the supervisor of election. The supervisor of election, the deputies are employees of the board under the direction and supervisor of the board. Did I write in the version code? I didn't write it. We keep jumping between 411 and 412. If you follow the statutes under 412, it makes reference to the district court. And those of us sitting here, who've been here, should realize that certain laws have been changed through Congressional Act and also versions to the versions legislature did not remove the word district court for review of 412. That goes on the jurisdiction of the Superior Court. Again, the board in each district have certain authority over the eligibility of the candidates, the electors, and the voters, and the candidates in the district. What I understand from Mr. Monito Smith and his candidates, since they are territorial individuals looking for public office, the board have authority and jurisdiction to review and approve the proper and legal vetting of candidates by the supervisor election. If many of you can remember Mr. Ross, Mr. Moorhead, and some of us have been here before, Ms. Judges, that the Attorney General on December 17th or 19th of 2011 wrote Mr. Ross, the chairman of the joint board then, because there was a letter that was submitted to the Attorney General on November 7 asking him about the eligibility of the proper vetting of Alicia Hansen. Mr. Fraser made it clear. He says, therefore, since the supervisor of the election did not properly vet the candidate, it is clear that he did not do what he's supposed to do. Look for the letter. November 7, 2011, December 19, 2011. If you're looking for it clearly, you'll find the letterhead of the election system signed by Mr. Ross, the joint chairman, questioning, and no board member had gotten a copy. So if it is clear that the Attorney General Fraser is saying one thing, and we try to turn it around now to play we can't have jurisdiction, then we don't need a board. The board have authority because the board hires the supervisor. They are employees of the supervisor's office under our jurisdiction. And we still yet don't know who all of them are. So that's, can I finish please? Mr. Watson was there talking all the time. So I'm saying, we did not waive no rules to do anything. All we did here, that was to rearrange the agenda. And if Attorney Salisbury is telling us, says you called for her, she read another section that I've been talking about. I'm saying this body here have the authority to determine if Mrs. Fox, the supervisor of election, properly vetted the candidate, whether she must tell us what all she did to determine whether Mr. Atley was eligible to meet the requirement that these people made, who she spoke to, what she did, and present to this board the documentation. So well, I did this on such and such a day. I spoke to IRS. I spoke to the Attorney General. I spoke to the Department of Labor under 109E and F. She must tell us that. That is our authority to find out. We agree with how she vetted the eligibility of Mr. Atley as what Mr. Gentleman is complaining about. If we don't do that, we ain't doing no job.
Thank you.
Right.
Each board member would have 3 minutes to state their opinion as to this matter. Starting with member.
Point of information, Mr.
Hold on, Attorney. Hold on, Lisa, hold on.
Member
Ms. Gallardo wants to
Point
speak.
of information.
Good
We still have an issue on the table to allow whether Williams and Mohammed is going to vote, allowed to vote or not.
I realize that's all there, but there's no motion to that yet.
Well, okay.
So that's why I'm having you speak to the candidate Molito Smith Jr.'s appeal. That's what we have in front of us now. There's no motion that has been made and nothing
So
to
they will
discuss
not be
regarding
allowed
that.
to vote.
It hasn't been
Okay.
made yet.
I just want to make it clear.
You're speaking on D. 3 minutes.
Okay,
Please put your chairs around the side so none will be in the back end. Thank you.
put a chair to Mrs. Fox.
Well, just before, since hold your thought, member Webster. Mrs. Fox, would you say what you've done to vet these candidates?
Point of order. Point of order.
Then each person could speak to whatever they spoke to.
No, point of order.
Yes.
Are we going to let Mrs. Fox tell us what she did? Are we going to question Mrs. Fox to present the appropriate document?
You will have the 3 minutes to whatever you want, what she said, what she's done.
No, is she going to produce a document so we can see?
You have documents there, Mrs. Fox? Yes, she
Okay.
has. All right, Mrs. Fox?
Okay, again, good morning, board members.
Okay, Ms. Fox is going to speak
This
out.
is the board and everybody.
Please, sir.
Okay.
Again, good morning, board members. Again, we're here based on candidate Smith's appeal.
Be sure that all board members
The
have a
revised
copy.
organic act of
And the deputies will get theirs after.
Excuse me, I can't read this thing here to it.
Well, probably she'll speak to it. Let's go, Ms. Fox.
That's the copies of the machine and the machine this morning.
I don't laugh at it, we can't read them, I can't understand it. This is not, I hear you laugh like serious. You have some things you can see, and some you can't read this stuff. So we go to let Ms. Fox verify.
She's going to speak to whatever is on there.
Okay, thanks.
Revised organic act of 1954, section 11 states.
Excuse me. One conversation at a time, please. One conversation at a time, please. Mrs. Fox?
Point of order. Member Monsanta and I need to see a copy of what we just
Because Mrs. Fox said that the deputy should get theirs after and be sure all board members have this. So I'm just looking at what Ms. Barbell has. It's probably one of yours.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Continue, Mrs. Fox. No, I'm sorry, I realized that something going on. I didn't notice. Continue.
The evidence provided states candidate Ashley was appointed to a federal job August 2008 in the Department of Interior.
Do I have a copy of that?
No, I'm reading my, no, this is what
I need a copy, please.
No, this
Make
is my
a motion.
notes. I'm reading my notes.
I need to read what she's reading.
Are you making a motion to that effect? Because we have no.
I'm making a motion. We take a recess and get a copy of what she's reading, please. So move.
Second. Okay, roll call.
Roll call on the motion.
Wait till you know what she reading.
And I know, like,
Yes.
I type up my notes to read. This is my
Lawrence,
But
presentation.
you're reading it to the
We're
record.
having a roll call on.
Motion.
Member Brian's motion. We're having a roll
Hold on,
call.
Miss Wong.
We're having a roll call on Member Brian's motion to have copies of what you're reading from.
Read it to the record.
Roll call.
Wait, come on, right there.
If you're voting yes, that means you want to have a recess to have the copies done. If you're voting no, that's against the motion.
We voted yes, we didn't get voted to get a copy of what she's reading into the record.
If you're voting yes, you're voting to have our
Copies of what she's
copies
reading
and
into
to
the
have
record.
the meeting, have a recess to get the copies done. If you're voting no, you're voting against the motion. No, just a minute.
Lawrence Larry Bishalti, absent. Harry Daniels, absent. Claudia Georges,
Yes.
Lydia Hendricks,
Yes.
Wilma Mart Monsanto,
Yes.
Arturo Watlington Jr., no. Alicia Wells,
No.
Liliana Bellardi O'Neill,
Yes.
yes. Adelbert Bryan,
Yeah.
yes. Rupert Ross,
No.
Glenn Webster,
Yes.
next one. Roland Molina,
Yes.
Madam Chair, 7 years, 3 years, 3 years. I'm sorry.
No. Trina.
No, 7, hold on. 7, yes. 3 no, 3 nays, 4 absent.
Sir.
So we need a recess, and when are we gonna make these
Yeah.
copies, Mr. Hunter?
After show how much she does.
No, but she should come here with a report.
You're gonna recess. You're gonna recess.
You know, scam be in the record.
Well, send them to your office to make it.
Let them go.
It's working.
I don't mention them.
We're gonna recess and call you back to this one.
You can move to a military tribunal.
Office Max.
Too much shit.
Who makes the agenda? I make an agenda and I don't call the lager as last report. I shall know what's on the agenda. You know full well.
We're gonna make that copy.
You can't bring them to the proposed military tribunal without talking to people.
Is your copy on the-
Record is record.
When you come into class, it's supposed to
Like working on 3 pieces of paper. 2 stinking and 2 separate.
No, it's not the.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
See, record 22, we're back on the record roll call.
Mr. Lawrence Larry Bishalti.
Excuse me, we're having
Absent.
a roll call.
Mr. Harry Daniel, absent. Claudia Georges,
Present.
Lydia Hendricks,
Present.
Wilma Mart Monsanto, Drew Watlington Jr., present. Alicia Wells, present. Liliana Belade O'Neill,
Present.
Albert Bryan,
Here.
President Roland Molina, President Rupert Ross Jr., President Glenn Webster,
Quickly, the call.
So Webster President, did I make you Mr. Molina again? You. I did, right? Madam Chair, 11 present, 4 absent.
Thank you. We'll continue now with the supervisor's report regarding D.
Anything else that talk about, we'll have a copy of Again, the evidence provided states candidate Atlee was appointed to a federal job August 2008 with the Department of Interior to serve in a DSP officer as a DSP officer before being reassigned to the DI in 2010. What a verification process of the election system, I give you a copy of a form that we utilize. Checklist. If anyone should have a copy.
Excuse me, you read it from the document we just talking fast.
I just read from that, the second statement under the bold highlight. We get some copies down this.
So you skip the first portion with the
Yeah, because I already had that before.
Which one?
No, the members need to have, all the members of their copies.
Have a checklist? Nomination checklist?
No, over here, they're having, Mr. Botas, can you get those papers from there and give to the members, please? Member Hendricks, you have all your copies? Member Molinar, Member Ross, he has nothing in front of him.
You need?
Yeah.
Wait, with the action group? That's no.
I'm going to do this. That's okay.
Same thing.
Member Ross needs copy. Member Hendricks, you have copy?
There's no more issue.
No, we got more. We got them first, and the other, whatever is left.
Okay, continuing the checklist. Once a petition is received by the deputies, created with this part of the checklist, was met here, and this is checklist that we utilize. So we check the name of the candidates, we go into the candidate information, the registration, the address, the party affiliation, the age and the residence, and the rest is applicable, readable. What you have in front of you was a copy of candidate Atlee's registration card, manual copy, and also a printed copy of his electronic voting record.
Now, is that what you said that, excuse me, is that what you said that the board should have first and that the deputy should give to us? Because I don't have a copy of it. I think it's Brad Bell kept the copy. No, I gave it to somebody over there because she kept the copy of my.
So you have 2 copies. Again, we're going to what's called profile. And like we talked about updating the database from 1996 to present. So in the future, you will be only seeing the electronic version. But I bring both copies here. Reference show that Basil Atlee voted in the Virgin Islands every year. It shows when he voted absentee. And it's also in his electronic voters information.
Excuse me. Some of the last is not one-on-one.
Yes, that's the electronic voter history of each person. Like I said, going forward, that's where you
This was the deal from where?
from our database called profile. Pull the information from the database. So since I was coming here, I pulled it from the computer to bring to the meeting. You usually won't see this report unless you ask for it. If anybody has a registration history, because like I said, we're going away from the registration card, but I bought both his manual card and
We've begun.
also
Okay,
his
we've begun.
electronic history.
So what you're saying is the facts, according to your database on this paper,
Yes.
so generated from the Board of election system record.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's
And that's
electronic.
prepared by,
I pulled the report for this meeting today. But it's prepared, but anyone of the...
No, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, it's the profile database that we use, that's what we can register folks on right now. Anyone of the deputies or anyone can put information.
It says the copy that has already. That's a copy of what?
The one of the registration card out of the registered, the big books. And like I said, that has to be emailed to me and printed. I printed those in After Marks, and that's the best they come out
So
with.
for the record, I have the phone. For the record, can you tell us basically what is this red ink information, please?
There you go. Thank you. Chair? Okay, and the front information, a registration card usually have the name, the address, the date of his residency is where you say June 1990. Like I said, if you bounce that up, the electronic version, and you kind of copy yours to both. Right up on the top corner, the electronic version. So he was a resident, as of January 1990. It filled all his information, date of birth, etc. The party, and who was signed by.
What is that year over across from?
That's when he became a Democrat, 1992.
1990. And the number to the right is his social security number.
Correct. We already set up on the record.
No, I just want to make sure I'm filling it in because something like to miss.
Well, I'll try to give you a darker copy of that.
And
It tells you what we utilize to verify his residency was his passport.
Passport?
Yes, the next, right under that for your hands.
They issued the passport?
Citizenship.
That's what we use to verify his residency.
Citizenship?
Yeah. Citizenship.
And the signature to the left is who?
The signature is the person that registered here.
You don't know what that's about?
One of the other form would be his own is at the bottom. His signature is at the bottom.
Who is that signature to the back of
It seems like Alicia Bailey, the same lady we talked about that passed today. That's the same lady that we talked about today. She was 92. So she said when she did it, activity was 1992 when she registered.
And the signature to the top is Mr. Who's?
That would be, so I got to read it properly. The person that registered him, his signature is to the bottom. See, actually, right under his date of birth, 5'8", black, brown, and his date of birth.
On the back page.
On the back page, now this gives you the voting history. Tells you every year, we got a card started from 1991, right now it goes to 2016, and it tells you every year the person voted, how they voted.
May I interrupt? You all hearing? Hello? You guys hearing?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right, sorry. Attorney?
I can hear him in thoughts, but I can't, Bert is kind of muffled, but I can hear him in thoughts.
So it gives you the party, the number he was when he signed into the incoming book, and the party he was when he voted. Democrat, all the way.
So
It shows you in 2000.
This record that we have on the back page, versus CRP side 2, it goes up to information day submission in 2001, 1999, 1998, 1997. You come to the right. What date is it 2005? There's nothing written in
You go by every 2 years, election year. So it's even years.
Right,
All years are empty.
What is written there on that 2006?
2006, they have Democrat, he was 186, and some initials at the clerks that I put it, they got absentee, SQ. And if you look at your print
No, you said absentee, but there's a date and a number under what looks like D1 something.
Yeah, because D1 is the school, the location, the district that he voted, and it was 11/7/2006. November 7, 2006.
And the 2006,
2008, 2010, 2012.
2010, who? how he voted in 2010.
2010, and the paper in the front, which is more readable.
No, I'm saying this is a card that came in the system.
Yeah, it says here,
When I see it says,
the date he voted and who signed him, and he voted at the poll. Every time you have the number is when they sign in, D63.
yeah,
So when he signed in to the polling place, that was where he was, and he voted at the polls.
and that's a poll when you appeared.
Yes. The only thing that absentee, you have two locations that absentee and it's annotated such on
That's
the
what
left side.
I was trying to clarify.
Right. So everything here is he showed up and he voted.
63 would stand for what? The
The number that he was made when he signed in. Democrat number
in the lack, okay.
the votes.
Now I noticed in 2012, there's a strike away in that, and those markings of that match will replace what appears to be another D, that 98R, the opposed was scratched. So how who scratched that out?
In 2012, again, I wasn't here, they were utilizing the equal books the first year. And they were testing some with equal books and the register. And so the clerks now have to go in and put in the information based on the equal books and the signing roster. So that's the same person, he's now D number 98, MR.
And what did they put before the scratch it out, the same line?
They got D46.
So which is the accurate one? Who initial that?
The one that's D, the MR is the judge will be the one that initial it, but it's still D and R.
And did anyone find out which judge changed those dates? Thank you.
If you look above in that same column where something is, where that one is lined out, there's nothing else above that. So the person who was writing on the card probably put it in the wrong
That's what we assume.
column. Well, you know, we should never assume anything.
Yeah,
And then
assume
move
that
it over.
nobody initial it.
Initial is there.
MR. We just don't know which is until we look back in the book and see who got elected. As initial for every one of those markers on
And his card is in St. Thomas, hard copy if you want to see clearer. Because again, if you email something and you copy it and scan it, that's what you do again. But the card is there, visible for anybody to check as evidence. Also comes in as a candidate affidavit.
I could verify who MR is. MR would be Mayor Richardson at Dover School.
And for the record, absence, somebody to authenticate that that's the same.
She was the judge at the polling place at Dover School, Mayor Richardson.
You're not going to argue about it, but I can.
I can't follow you, Miss Henry, because I know I personally voted there too.
So all we're going to say is, wait, I ask you these questions to verify for myself. Nobody can say who signed something because the person was present. I'm simply asking what is on the document. I want authentication and verification. So I just want to make sure we got it right. When I ask my question, I am trying to suggest anything. Thank you.
Again, I think most people are familiar with Title 18, 262, reference residence compared to domicile. Again, it's pretty clear that I won't take time to go through that because we're already behind the time.
Say that again, please.
No, it says section 262 of the VA code is very self-explanatory. Reference residence and domicile defined. The next area I go on.
Before you go to past 262, what about 263?
263.
Title 18, 263.
I'm
With the eligible voter.
Yes. But I'm reading my thing into it.
I know, but I'm asking, did you reference any correspondence on Mr. Adams' candidate information
No.
sheet on
He
here?
referenced 263. I didn't reference 263.
What is about 263? Who determined if he was an eligible voter? No. Did you determine that?
Yes.
What process did you use?
That's what I'm saying. I went another checklist that we're going through. That's what I just said. I was going to the affidavit.
Under 263, what's an eligible voter? If you recall.
263 address loss of franchise by felon and mental incompetence.
What did you use to determine to the fact he did not lose his voting rights?
When you lose your voting rights, you get a document from the court, which is called our court order. And what is done is the checked, verified, information is calculated, and we go into the database and we first change the person from active to inactive.
So when
I
you
get a
check that,
printout, we check that. That's when you check the
so you
database.
check that statute and you adapt it.
Right.
So he's
You
an
can
eligible
also-
voter.
Yes, you can also check his card, and then you put on a paper there to see if he's active or inactive. They usually get a letter from our office stating they can't vote for a number of years, and they also get a letter from our office when they're reinstituted to voting rights. Continuing here, a change of residence to enable a person to perform the duties of a civil office, whether elected or appointed, does not of itself constitute a change of domicile. Again, this is some research that I looked up. Now, my attorney gave me this information, I just did my own little notes. Even though a person may be absent from his domicile for many years and may return only at long intervals.
Where can you read it from?
Right on my paper, change of residence right under there.
Paragraph 2.
I'm on the paper.
Second page.
Yeah, okay.
She or he retains a domicile if he or she does not acquire a domicile elsewhere. The District of Columbia versus Murphy, 314 U.S. 441, U.S. 1941. The court held that one who comes to a state to enter into government service and to live there for its duration does not thereby acquire a new domicile. No distinction is made in this respect between elected and appointed officers. Ambassadors, ministers, and consular officers generally do not gain or lose a domicile by their employment or duties. The rule also applies to federal office holders and employees in the District of Columbia. Thus, one who goes somewhere and remains to render service to the government and requires his or her presence, they may retain his or her domicile in the state from which he or she comes until the service terminates, unless he gives clear evidence of his or her intention to forego his state allegiance. I also got...
You make reference to the Washington, D.C. situation. I don't know if you had a chance to check with the legal counsel as it relates to another requirement for domicile under Title 1. You have it with you, or did you get a chance to check that?
Legal counsel didn't give me anything. I could check it after.
Well, I just want to make sure that you include and have all information related to domicile.
Yeah.
I'm not disputing what you just said, but I found another article to make reference, not identical, but similar to the concerns raised by Mr. Smith and Keith about domicile and continuous versus under Title 1. So I don't know if the legal counsel listened to that.
In my own research again, continuing domicile, chapter 13, miscellaneous section analysis, 201 and 202, session law 1968, part 2, page 119. Says, continuing domicile. Any person who is an elected or appointed official, officer, or employee of the government of the Virgin Islands or of the federal government who is required thereby to be absent from the Virgin Islands may retain his legal residence in the Virgin Islands and in the island of domicile for at least the duration of the term of office or employment in such office. Number 1 was a resident of the Virgin Islands immediately prior to required absence, and number 2 intends to retain his residence in the Virgin Islands and during his absence does not manifest a contrary intention by exercising the right of citizens of the jurisdiction in which he is living by voting in such other jurisdiction or by any other act of legal significance. Such continuing legal resident in the Virgin Islands shall have every incident accorded by law. So based on this, we can defeat, based on my summary, evidence reviewed and provided, candidate Bassett Ackley's affidavit of candidacy, registration card, hard copy, candidate Ackley electronic voting history, date of residency, and continuing domicile section analysis. He meets the requirement for certification as Lieutenant Governor for the 2014 primary election. Again, once the complaint was filed, I decided to do additional steps to check some documents that really was required in case somebody wanted to say he voted in 2012 for Obama. I checked with the election office, he did not. And then additional step, his taxes, he filed his taxes here from 2008 until present.
Okay, what, just a minute. What we'll do now, we'll allow each board member, and I'll go from St. Thomas, St. John, St. Croix, St. John, St. Croix, and member Hendricks will keep time, 3 minutes, to speak to what Mrs. Forbes just said. Starting with Claudette Georges.
Good evening, everyone. Based on what Ms. Forbes has presented to us, I have to concur with the findings of the supervisor. And we have been taking it to a vote here. But everything based on the law, also based on all of the evidence and listing of the candidates' voting record, especially since he was physically here. I have no doubts in my mind.
Member Belada, O'Neill.
I pass on this pan, Madam Chair.
Member Lydia Hendricks.
I also concur with Ms. Fox of the short report that she gave us, plus my understanding of what domicile is and residency. I concur with Ms. Fox at this time.
Member Delbert Bryan.
I'm ready. Looking for documents.
Member Wilma Marsh Monsanto.
I'm passing at this moment.
Member Roland Molinar.
I pass, but I want to ask Member Brian a question. May I be allowed?
Okay. We're talking about Ms.
I can
Fox
understand.
presentation. You have 3 minutes.
But this has to do with it.
This is the 3 minutes you have to do whatever you need to do regarding this.
Member Brian.
Yes, sir.
You referenced Title 1.
Yes.
I am
Title 1, VA subsection 201. We just have it here. Continuing domicile. That's what that's saying. This is fact. I can share a copy with the members. It just basically says any person who is an elected or appointed official, officer, or employee of the government of the Virgin Islands of the federal government, or who is required thereby to be absent from the Virgin Islands, may retain his legal residence in the Virgin Islands in the islands of domicile for at least the duration of the term of the office or employment in such person. That's what was trying to assist Mrs. Fox to find out. She went that far to check it. And it goes far, it says, was a resident of the Virgin Islands immediately prior to the required absence, and 2, intends to remain his resident in the Virgin Islands and during his absence does not manifest a contrary intention by exercising the right of citizens of the jurisdiction in which he is living by voting in such other jurisdiction or by any other act of legal significance. Such continual residence in the Virgin shall have every resident recorded by law. That was the section that was done in 1968, the section of the Virgin 1968, page 2, page 190. I went farther to do it. I was doing my own check to make the verification, and so I was asking Mrs. Fox if she had a chance to support what she was just saying in this. It's a public document.
Member Arturo Wellington.
I have no comment.
Member Rupert W. Ross.
I support the position taken by the supervisor. I have no further comment.
Member Glenn Webster.
Yeah, I have a question. I just want to know if it's possible for anybody to vote so consistently in elections since 1996 and not be a resident of the Virgin. Is that possible? I mean, whether it's this board or any board in the past would allow.
That's a rhetorical question. That's a rhetorical, right? Rhetorical, right? You know the answer yourself, right?
Well, yeah.
All right.
I passed, but I really need to ask a question.
Okay, we're going back to Member Arturo Wellington.
I need to ask a question. Ms. Fox, you made, I don't know if it was a public statement or in your initial written response to candidate Smith and Lieutenant Governor candidate Frederick, that there was some deadline regarding some procedural issue regarding the challenge to someone's eligibility. Can you clarify or put that on the record as to what you stated, because you didn't say anything about that in this.
Right. My attorney at that time was Attorney Carol Jacobs. I know the news media quoted Salisbury, but she was Ark Island. So we together drafted a response. I read it into the record. It's an election system. I tried to respond promptly. The request came on the 7th. We responded on the 8th. The election system of the Virgin Islands in receipt of your complaint dated July 7th in reference to former Senator Basalati, etc. Residency requirement. Through the candidate verification processes, all nomination petition papers and certificates submitted by the candidates running for public office are thoroughly examined as required by Title 18, Chapter 17, Section 411, to ensure that each candidate meets the eligibility requirements. To qualify as a candidate, and it's sure all the same thing he said, so I skip over that. I'll go to the end. We ended with
You say secretary to read it, please?
It's the same section we said, that to qualify as a candidate for the office of Lieutenant Governor of Virgin Islands, a person must be an eligible voter in the Virgin Islands, at least 30 years of age and a citizen of the United States and a bona fide resident of the Virgin Islands for 5 consecutive years immediately preceding the election, revised in an act in Title 18, Section 262, which defines and clarifies the term resident of the Virgin Islands. Pursuant to Section 411, the nomination petition for the Christian Athlete team was reviewed, and we found that Mr. Athlete met the qualifications to run for Lieutenant Governor. Your challenge to Mr. Atlee's nomination is untimely. Title 18, Chapter 17, Section 412 specifically provides that all nomination petitions and papers received and filed under this chapter and after the examination required by Section 411 of this title shall be deemed to be valid unless within 5 days after the last day for filing such nomination petition or paper, a petition is presented to the Superior Court specifically setting forth the objections thereto and praying that such petition or paper to be set aside. The last day for filing nomination petition was May 23rd, 2014. The Smith Jr. Frederick team had 5 days thereafter to challenge Mr. Atlee's nomination petition, but failed to do so. Since your challenge to Mr. Atlee's nomination petition is more than 5 days after May 23rd, 2014, it is untimely. You may seek legal redress to further address your concerns. Thank you for submitting your complaint, and if you need any further information, please don't hesitate to contact me, my telephone number, and my email address.
Thank you.
We've heard from the supervisor, and we each got the chance. Member Ryan, did you pass?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Oh, I forgot about. I'm sorry, Member Moen. Member Brian is going to get his 3 minutes, and then you and Member Williams will get your 6 minutes.
What I'm trying to ascertain with this fax is, you said for the record it was not Tony Salzberg.
It was right, it was Tony Carroll Jacobs.
Tony Carroll Jacobs.
That's what.
And the records that you received, the packages for all the candidates, were they the same requirements? Every candidate received a candidate?
Yes, every candidate had the same
So the
requirement.
candidate's questionnaire and information sheet had some requirements.
And the calendar also have the deadline for
Right.
every requirement for election.
And did all the candidates, the governor, delegates to Congress, or senators, or board of election, did they submit a police record long that was accepted?
No comments.
We're going to move on. You tell us this morning which attorney advised you to shred the police record that you received. Time is running, I'm waiting to answer.
I said no comments.
Okay, so then, but you acknowledge that you got police records.
Yes, I did.
And was there any meeting that you attended before the joint board or the district board that authorized you to shred police records? Did all the candidates that applied receive, or do you have a record of whose record you shredded and whose record you returned to them by mail?
Yes.
You have that? You have it here today? Will you be able to present it to the board? Since the board have direct supervision on the supervisor election, I think we can get that correct?
Sure.
So let me ask you a question again then.
Time.
Time is up to 3 minutes.
Probably.
All right. Member Moore. I told Member Moore and Morgan.
I will give you my 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, you ready for you? You have 3 minutes. Yes, sir. We're hearing you loud and clear.
We are interjecting confusion and losing
What did you say? I can't hear you, man.
the district election happening for the primary. So, yeah, my position is that
Wait a while.
All right, sir.
Wait a minute, I can't even say.
And if we can support bills, then we need to do a letter just out of courtesy. I think that's appropriate.
All right. Well, all right. We need to do a letter out of courtesy. Yes, we should.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Never recall that here. I can't hear what Member Moorhead is saying, neither Mr. Williams. Would you ask them to repeat what they're saying so we can hear you?
Mr. Williams and Ms. Moorhead, Mr. Bryan said he didn't hear what you're saying. It didn't come out clear. Could you repeat loudly for the record, and Mr. Bryan what you said, please?
Yes, certainly. I said based on the law and what the supervisor has said,
You're dropping off.
Okay.
Your voice is dropping off.
I concur with the supervisor's position based on her presentation and what the law says related to this issue, that the examination by the board, number one, is not in our purview. Number two, the things that is challenged timely. We wrote the letter after the time when he should have challenged it at the court level.
All right.
And the last thing I had said was that if the board feels that we should write a letter out of courtesy stating what the board's position is, that we should, yes, we should do that, but we can't do any further action on it to the board.
Minutes, time.
Okay, the time is up. The 3 minutes is up. According to the timekeeper, Mr. Williams.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll have a roll call.
No, this is good. She-
Oh, I'm sorry, Member Marshman sent minutes.
Point of order.
Wait a minute.
Take Member Monsanto.
What did she say?
I'm gonna take 1 second of it to
Second gone already.
You took it. May I ask, through the chair to Supervisor Fox, how soon were you in receipt of this when you were making your responses with this particular document? When you were doing your vetting, how were you in, did you have this in your possession? Yes.
If you prepare to go to court, you do not show your evidence.
I have one thing to say to that. I believe that if anyone challenges, and that's our problem, challenges are made based on what is happening, what has been done, and we sort of sweep everything under the rug. I'm glad that Mr. Smith was bold enough to bring forward this as a challenge, and I believe it was in perfect order. The board should look into it and address it, and we come to some sort of conclusion. Mr. Bryan?
How much more time is the timekeeper in?
A minute and a half.
A minute and a half, Member Bryan?
Thank you. My position basically has to deal with the documentation. And I understand Title 18, I think Chapter 1, Subsection 4 makes it clear. Attorney Selvary said that this would have jurisdiction to examine the function of the supervisor election and the capacity we function. Again, under Title 18 and the same 47.8, it makes us responsible to conduct investigation into election irregularity. For irregularity reported, the board responsibility to act, not to procrastinate and postpone. Furthermore, if you read a December 19, 2011 letter to Mr. Ross, the chairman of the joint board, and letter to Mr. Anjan Abrams, he says here, therefore must conclude that supervisor elections did not determine the eligibility of the candidate nomination. So we must decide if the supervisor determine due diligence to determine the eligibility of policy, what he just put on the record in order for us to support it. I ain't here to play no game. I want to follow the statute. Attorney General Fraser wrote this in response to Mr. Ross of November 7th, asking him under same section 51 if we can have a hearing. So what we balancing and playing gymnastics with, they ask for an opinion, and going to give it to us, but we had hearing from a letter written by Mr. Springer to Mr. Dan Abramson. We had a hearing to investigate whether Mr. Abramson did the right thing. In this instance, Ms. Fox is presenting evidence that she complied with the statute. She gave us where she checked, how she checked. No way we can get around these things that we're responsible. So that's my position. I'm not here because I'm a friend of nobody. I want to tell the truth of the case. So I am saying basically, you check the record. The duty and responsibility for this hearing is only the Board of Election to determine whether it was properly done or if they disagree or not. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I have my 2 minutes now? I'm not a mistake.
May you have your 3 minutes? Yes, you may.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I would like to ask, through the chair to Mr. Bryan and everybody in here, if they are satisfied with every document that the supervisor have presented, and if these documents, according to her presentation, deal with the issue, and that we are ready to either deal with Mr. Melito Smith and let him redress his concern to the court, or this body is going to make a decision based on all these documents that we presented to us.
Through the chair, I move to sustain the supervisor's decision of Basil Hartley as an eligible candidate for the Lieutenant Governor of the Virgin Islands.
Second.
Objection.
Objection has been moved and seconded and sustained.
Can I put my
Just a minute, I'm just repeating. That we sustain the supervisor's methodology for dealing with, this is paraphrasing, Basil Hartley's candidacy. Objection?
My reason for the objection, I think O'Neill made it very clearly to allow the complainant in this issue to this board to be heard whether we agree or disagree with supervising election. If we want to give due process, we must do that. That's all I'm asking. So I think it's untimely to move to accept when you have the complainant present. You don't want to not try.
There's a motion on the floor, it's been seconded.
But I just want to put my objection on the record.
Your objection is heard. Roll call on the motion.
Lawrence Larry Bishalti, absent. Harry Daniels, absent. Claudette Georges?
Yes.
Claudette Georges, yes. Lydia Hendricks?
Yes.
Lydia Hendricks, yes. Wilma Marsh Monsanto?
No.
Wilma Marsh Monsanto, no. Arturo Watlington Jr., yes. Alicia Wells?
Yes.
Alicia Wells, yes. Liliana Belalde O'Neill?
No.
Liliana Belalde O'Neill, no. Delbert Bryan?
No.
Delbert Bryan, no. Roland Molina? No. Roland Molina, no. Rupert Ross? Rupert Ross Jr.?
Yes, yes, yes.
Rupert Ross Jr., yes. Glenn Webster?
Yes.
Glenn Webster, yes. Madam Chair? 6 years, 4 no's, 4 nays, 4 absent. 2 on the phone, 4 absent.
Okay, so the motion is carried.
All right.
Motion,
Okay.
Member Bellato.
I move that Mr. Melito Smith and Mr. his Lieutenant Governor be allowed some minutes to address this board.
Second.
Object.
Objection? What's the objection?
Yeah, I'd like to state, I think at this point, it is not proper. We've already voted on the issue. It's no longer before the board. Mr. Smith and Mr. Frederick have a right to, in fact, take up an appeal of this matter or take their redress to the legal proceedings in the Superior or the District Court. But I don't think that we should now have oral arguments on an issue that we already voted upon.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Madam Chair, I don't think Mrs. O'Neill's motion is to argue the presentation. She was just asking that this body respectfully allow the complainant to say a few words, not to testify.
And I tried to do that before Ms. Hendricks made her...
We must be respectful people. That's how we're going to do it.
Courtesy.
Motion, right?
Yeah, okay. Lawrence Larry Bishalti, absent. Harry Daniels, Absent. Claudia Georges?
Yes.
Claudia Georges, yes. Lydia Hendricks?
No.
Lydia Hendricks, no. Wilma Monsanto?
Yes.
Wilma Monsanto, yes. Arturo Watlington Jr., no. Liliana Balade O'Neill?
Yes.
Alicia Wells?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Alicia Wells, yes.
Hello?
Adelbert Bryan?
Yes.
Adelbert Bryan, yes. Roland Molina?
Yes.
Roland Molina, yes. Rupert Ross?
No.
Rupert Ross, no. Glenn Webster?
Yes.
Glenn Webster, yes. Madam Chair, 7 yeas, 3 nays, 4 absent.
Mr. Smith?
Attention, you're playing.
How many minutes?
5 minutes?
Where will you stand?
But anyway, the thing,
You want to sit here, you may want to
you can sit by seat or one.
You go sit there. You go sit there. Yeah, we had a vote. We had a vote that was passed to allow Mr. Smith to address the body.
Just 5 minutes.
So you have 5 minutes. Yeah, okay. He's ready to speak now.
He said that time.
Excuse me. Yes, we did. I said 5 minutes.
Yeah, but we need to take a vote in 5 minutes. That's
No, we didn't.
I know, but Chair said 5 minutes, it's 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Oh, restricted.
We restricted ourselves, we just going away. Please start.
Okay, 5 minutes.
Please listen.
Good afternoon to everyone. As indicated, I am Lito Smith, and with me is my running mate, Mr. Hubert Frederick. We respectfully thank the joint board for addressing this matter. However, we still believe that the core issue that we have raised has not been addressed. The core issue that was raised was not Mr. Ockley's ability to vote or his voting status in the Virgin Islands. The core issue that we raised spoke specifically to his bona fide residency status, of which we have not heard any argument or seen any presentation in this meeting to speak to that. We will look at our options along with our legal team and make a determination what our next steps will be. But a next step will be determined and made public prior to the primary election date of August 2nd, 2014. We thank the board for inviting us to be an observer. We respect your time, and as such, we will end this presentation, and thank you for the time for that presentation. But for the record, since the stenographer is here, our core issue has not been addressed in my determination, and that determination has to do with his 5 years consecutive bona fide residency status, which would have had to happen by May 2009. The dates that he voted are immaterial to our issue. Our concern had to do with the date of May 2009 and beyond. We have not seen or heard anything in this proceeding that speaks to that bona fide residency status at this time. Thank you very much, and have a good day. Thank you.
You're right. The voters are...
Excuse me. You can sit that outside. You may speak. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the board too for this opportunity. Thank you so much for taking your time out and coming out. I know it's been a very difficult process for some members, and for others, I really honestly didn't know the process was so complicated. I was disappointed that only one side of the argument was presented, and none of the board members challenged the entirety of the law. We had an opportunity to question every test that the law spelled out, and we did not. That's what makes our process so distrusting, because no one feels, a regular person never feels that their views are being expressed by our elected officials. There's nothing wrong in just going through the process and testing every aspect of the law. Whatever comes up, we could live with it. But clearly right here, although we sat here, only the supervisor of election argument was heard. and no one challenged it. What are we afraid of? Fear is so rampant in our community. It seems like everyone, they're either afraid of their job or afraid of what someone might say about them or something. I don't know, fear. Challenge people. I got out of my business to challenge the status quo. If I had to meet the requirements, every single person should have to meet the same requirements. That's all I'm saying. I don't want anyone to be disenfranchised. But clearly today, I see again, my efforts have failed. Everything has to go to the third branch of government because we, for some reason, can't honestly have fair, open discussions. But that's my opinion, and I thank you for your time.
What is our personal privilege, Madam Chair?
Member Bryan?
First of all, I could Congress Nico Smith and his running mate for appearing here. I'm a personal need of due process. Be right and wrong, fairness and justice over petition. I believe that when there's a complaint, a defendant, I offered my investigation. I was hoping that Mrs. Fox's supervisor election would have presented the board with a written legal opinion since it was asked for by the Attorney General. Absent that, I haven't seen it. I'm sure I'm familiar with the statute that made reference on that Title 1 of Section 201. I'm sure Mr. Smith and Mr. Candidate can look at it. I don't have anything to I want to make a decision. Friend or foe, I want to pay. So that's my position. Thank you for appearing.
Thank you very much. If there's anything we can do to assist, further.
If I may, I want to reference my interpretation of one aspect of the law which speaks to the federal and local. Speak to federal and local appointments. Our interpretation of the law indicates that statute applies to individuals who are transferred from their place of residence, not individuals who resign from their position and take a position in another jurisdiction. So we will look at all of the actions and in conjunction with our legal team make a determination as to the next step that will be. Again, thank you, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll continue with our agenda. Mrs. Fox. Excuse me, Mrs. Fox. Mrs. Fox.
I'm just putting on the record that
Hello.
Excuse me.
Like I said, I do my research and I got my documents and I'm concerned that Monsanto gave a plaintiff or defendant my documentation. That's what I need to go to court with. So I'm just putting it on the record. I gave the board members documentation. She took the documentation and she gave it to the court.
It'll be on the radio.
That's my. I did the research. That's my documentation. I'm just putting it on the record.
That's gonna help you. Okay, excuse me. We'll continue on. Point of information.
I'm sure I basically have a suggestion. If the board is to accept the supervisor of elections verification or eligibility of Mr. Adley, I think it would be proper and formal and legal for the joint chair to submit to the appropriate authority the decision of the board today to support the board's position in all of these gentlemen decide to take anything further for any judicial review, that we have some paper on record that the body on July 22nd, so and so, the vote was whatever it was, supported the position of the supervisor of election, notwithstanding the fact that we didn't have the legal opinion and advice from in writing to the board. If you want to leave it out, it's up to the board how they want to sell, but I think the duty of the board must comply with the founding honor Title 18 subsection 4 and 47. We have done this part and
Point well taken. I'll do have a letter so we can have you right in case, because it probably will go further. All right, we're continuing on with and please note also that Mrs. Fox is asking that the board members keep their copies because it was her report that was given, but probably a little persons in there vying for higher office. Continuing on with our new business, so we're back to A. Question?
Yeah, I saw the agenda and I noticed that there was, I forgot what number it is, I don't have it in front of me, that there was going to be a discussion of pending the intention of the board to run.
No, that's not in there anymore.
What she said?
Where the next item would be the 2014 primary election policy, then the runoff policy approval, which has to be done. And then we have the number of general election ballots for discussion. And then the VI action group is asking for installation of cameras in the counting room in both districts.
Are there no personnel issues on the agenda for today?
No, there aren't any on the agenda because this is a special meeting to deal with these particular items. Unless someone is going to ask to have that done, because I know that member Williams said that he had a personal issue he wanted to have discussed. And I know that from the St. Thomas St. John district, we have many personal issues to be discussed, but it's not on the agenda as is written right now.
Okay. Again, board has done nothing up or down. It has to go back to the meeting about whether or not we can vote. If there's nothing, there's no personnel issue upon whether there can be no vote taken. Anything we say is just our opinion, so it's futile for us to
Well, probably someone there could make the motion for you for what you want to have done, so that they can vote from wherever they are. There's no motion before us. Are you going to shut off the phone? I'm surprised.
That's
because it's still a
what
phone. So, unless you can get somebody here, member Moorhead, to make that motion, there's no motion before the board.
Motion to temporarily suspend the rules to allow them to vote today.
Yes, that was what they asked.
I so move.
Oh, okay.
Second.
Member Ross Jr. moved the motion to temporarily suspend, and it was second by member Webster.
Who's secretary?
Excuse me, Rufus, I need you to write your motion. Rufus, I'm sorry. Member. I'm sorry.
Wait a minute, what is the first motion?
You had an objection, member. Excuse me? I know. All right, we have a motion. There he is, you can have it back. We have a motion to suspend the rules so that they can vote. It is given today, temporarily suspend the rules.
Vote on what?
Whatever, vote.
Okay.
But move and Webster second. So you can say that.
All right.
There was a objection by Brian.
Okay, roll call.
No, hold on.
No, okay, sorry.
Objection.
Please, could I put my objection on the record? I think we need to be fair and honest among ourselves. Those two members, rightfully so, are upset or listen to the proceedings. Nobody right here made a motion to allow him to vote a motion that was made all the time. Conveniently and comfortably, like Dr. King said, when this controversy will take
your vote will say what you want.
I want to put it on record, please. So here's it now. It's controversy and conflict have now seen to disappear.
Okay, I'll tell you.
Have now seen to disappear. Here is a member who was the joint board chairman before, making a motion. What they're going to do, you don't have a video conference. And now I hate to say that's Miss Moorhead.
At least you won't shut off the phone.
No, but I ain't on the phone there. I ain't worried about the phone, but I'm saying, Member Wells, Madam Chairman, could I make my record clear? If we're going to suspend the rules when it's convenient and appropriate and comfortable, then all of us here can stay for meetings and call in and vote. So we don't need to be here. We don't have a video.
The motion is on the floor.
Can I say this, please?
Yes.
We could have had a video conference long ago and agreed to do that. Here is it now. When the controversy seems to disappear, members want to they're absent. They are already recorded as absent on the record.
Thank you. Member
come on.
Belongo Daniel, you had an objection?
Yes, Madam Chairman. I believe that every member have an opportunity to come here, and if they decide to go on any conference, whether it's training or wherever they want to go, they have a choice of coming back. I came back last night at 12 o'clock to do this meeting. So if I was in Florida, I was not going to ask to vote from Florida, so I would not be even giving
Well, your vote was yours, that's all I'm saying. Roll call on the motion.
Lawrence Larry, Shorty, absent. Harry Daniel, absent.
Roll call on the motion.
Claudia Georges, no. I'm sorry, I gotta start over.
Just take the vote and then write the motion.
Yes.
Okay, don't work like that. I want to retry this.
Sorry. Excuse me,
Restate the motion, please.
okay, Member Bellado and Member Bryan has objected, and we start a roll call. So,
No, I heard that, but I might not have to speak.
For what?
well, let's
The motion, move the question.
Let us go.
We're doing the roll call.
Member Hendricks?
No.
Wilma Monsanto? No. Arturo Watlington? Yes. Alicia Wells?
No.
No. Eliana Belhadi O'Neill?
No.
No. Adelbert Bryan?
No.
No. Lisa Harris? No. They can't vote, right?
No.
Roland Molina? No. Rupert Ross?
Made a motion,
Yes. Glenn Webster?
Yes.
Okay, we have 7 days, 3 days. 7 years, 3 days. 4 absent.
7 years, 3 days, 4 absent.
Yeah, you can still listen in.
You just can't vote. Article 6.
I understand that, I just want to.
Yeah.
Taken, and I don't have a problem.
Okay.
Now it's time to put on the record. We are here when this conference isn't over until Thursday, unless the board will put a paper and reply back and come back and comment about, we could have come back and tried and helped them try to get a link to a video conference, and that wasn't available.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to create too much of a problem in terms of, the chastity of the votes that will be taken.
Point of inquiry, Madam Chair. Have inquiry.
Yes. I understand. Yes, I understand. They want to move the agenda, but they understand. I think that the vote is the vote.
I have an inquiry, with Chair.
Yes.
I think I heard Mr. First mention earlier that these documents were ready to the record and presented personal. Once these things are transmitted to the public, these are public documents.
Everybody has given copies.
I know what I'm saying. We evaluated them. These are the public documents.
Everybody.
So they will come the public of everybody and the board and the public of the board. If there's right
I do you tell your children to behave, not grown people, you set yourself. Yes, and you're telling me to behave, not to you as a place. My action is always professional. You're out of place, you behave yourself. Alright, so end of the business.
Next on the agenda, let's go.
It's for children to behave. Yes, it sure is.
Election policies, right? Let's go.
Behave yourselves. Oh. Yes, it's not. Except when we bring it up.
Still wrap your boxing glove in here.
Not even a boxing glove. My mouth can speak. She's out of place, but behave. It's up to children to behave. We saw her result of this. 2014 primary election policy. Please nothing. Ignorant, you know it. You know it. One knows the other. You came from that. Yes. A bucket. A bucket. 2014 primary election policy. You have copies of that?
No.
And we're giving it. Bucket.
I don't have it.
Oh, sorry. I'm not going to
Electoral policy before the claim or no time.
There ain't no policy. They got this over right now.
They got us in
Oh, we not going no place. We're staying here for the duration.
We need to get what we need
We're
to get
staying
done.
here for the duration. We're not going anywhere.
Okay,
We're
no,
finishing this
let's get
agenda.
done.
So then 6 months we can get going.
It was up to me.
Well, then you should ask that for yourself. I thought you were getting yourself a stand up too.
Let's
So they can stand up.
The policy.
2014 primary election policy.
On discussion.
Yes.
Okay.
And you have copies of it there. Also, children, every time you fight, it goes on there.
I don't
That's
have
for when you're in children,
one.
you can't tell them you don't
I have an extra runoff. It's just some open discussion on the things that I want to discuss, so it could be done.
Or the policy, so we can have territory-wide, so we can be territory-wide, correct? I just looking straight ahead. Bridle your people. All right.
You
know what bridling?
We're looking at this copy here. Now you see?
Excuse me, the TV is a big speaking on this.
Yes. You had no right. You had no right. If you pass the balance, we could talk about.
We're looking at this numerous page
Wait.
policy.
Wait, no. What we talking about? Policy?
No, it's more than one.
Start with discussion.
It says.
Can I get one, please?
Everybody had.
Those three things.
We have the runoff election. We have the assistant with casting the policy ballots.
What?
And we have the voting system. We have a lot of three different things. Every member should have 3 separate pages. One is one single sheet. One single sheet we have that says voting system on it, and the other one is assistance with casting.
I don't have the voting system on it. I'm missing the voting system.
Okay, let's look please first at assistant with casting of ballot. Everybody has that.
No, I don't. I don't have that one. I look. No, I look. I don't have it. I don't have it. I have the 3 things I have. The 2 things I have is the runoff.
And the voting system.
Joint pool election, that's all I have.
No, it's done in the little heading.
No, I don't need to read it. I don't. Let's go. Let's discuss it.
No.
I don't have a copy, please.
I don't have to have one.
Anybody has 2 copies, please give one to member Bellato, and you should have copies for everybody.
You have one person with assistant in your election. Come with assistant somebody, I don't have that.
We have 2 runoff elections.
Assistant one, I don't have it.
All of these are runoff elections. 3 of them.
Assistant, that's assistant one?
The same thing.
I don't have that.
But one is okay.
The next one for assistant.
We're looking at the paper that says, the top part says, election system of the Virgin Islands, joint board policy number 006. Does everybody see that? Everybody has a copy of that?
No, I don't. No, but let me see.
I have 005.
So there are 3, and I have it 3 different ones.
5 and 6.
4, 5, and 6.
That's what I have.
4, 5, and 6.
I have 4, 5, and 6.
What I'm saying here, Madam Chair, there's policy name assistance with casting of ballot policy.
What I'm saying, Mr. Molyneux, is 3, is 4, 5, and 6. It says right there in the policy number.
Okay, so I have 6 alone then.
That's the one we're dealing with right now.
Okay.
All right.
We'll get the other 2 later.
I have one question. Can I?
Yes.
It's draft
It's
for
a draft
discussion.
Yeah, well, that's why I have a question. Has the attorney seen this? Have you passed or?
Bring it today for us to discuss.
And she gets to look at it. They're on?
No, they aren't.
We talked about the 2 forms in the back before. I mean, the wording we'll get to, but when we had a meeting a couple months ago, we talked about the voter assistance form and the declaration to provide assistance and the declaration to
Well, the reason I ask this is because, first of all, I see something here that we're trying to declare something to be unlawful. Shall be unlawful for any person to be in the voting booth with an elector. Who said that?
What page you reading, Mr. Williams?
I read in the front page, number 2.
Number 2. I'll not proceed.
All right, let's see it. You talk about the policy assistance.
That's why I say that. You know, we can't, we don't make laws that create criminal, create a penal statute. And that's why the first thing I ask you, the attorney look at it. There's no way we can develop a policy to make action penal unlawful by saying it shall be unlawful. We can say it's improper because we're running an election, but we can't say nothing unlawful. So I am all I'm suggesting. Huh? Say it, please say it loud.
It's not voter friendly. You got it? Loud enough? The word unlawful.
I am hungry.
So
the section there, we should change it to.
Well, I don't think we should change. I think these procedures, if you want to develop certain procedures, I think I mean, I know we run out of time.
No, not this one. The one.
We run out of time for
runoff policy is a priority.
Well, I disagree with that too, because I don't see how we can have a runoff.
But we posted a question on the phone yesterday.
May I address that?
Yes.
But we still have to have a policy.
Yeah, the policy.
The policy basically says if there's a runoff, this is what we do. If there's no runoff,
and that's for 2000, and that's for 2016. Not 2014.
That's one. Second, if I may, the second reason is because of the issues with consent decree for the federal government, and because our laws doesn't allow us to have 45 days interim period between the general election and the runoff election, we're being required to submit a procedure for them to review. So how we're going to handle a runoff if it is deemed necessary.
I agree with you.
Basically, and we have a June 30th deadline.
Under normal circumstances.
So the fact that there may not be a...
There will not be. And by the time 2016 come around, they might change it to a plurality.
I agree. But so June 30th, 2014,
we don't miss it there.
July, sir, apologize. We need to have a record, a policy, if a runoff is determined to be necessary.
And I have no problem if you do it. But I'm saying, secondly, let me first please, and then you go, please. Secondly, we don't need to give the federal government any policy for the runoff for the lieutenant governor and governor. That's not a federal issue. But it's in here.
No,
it's in here.
I know what it is. I know what it says. And it says that the runoff policy for the runoff of the delegates office would be consistent with the runoff with the governor and lieutenant governor. Not that it is breaking upon the governor and lieutenant governor. That's already in our law.
Yeah, it's already in our law. And then secondly, and so I think number one, they should be separated. Number two, I still hold a position that because 2014, you cannot have a runoff. We need to say that to the federal government, that the policy even though we believe that there should be a policy in case there is a necessity of a runoff, that 2014 does not present that kind of situation for us. And because in Congress, there's the same law that's pending that says more than likely come 2016, we can be voting with not for 50 plus 1, but by a plurality. We wait for our time. That's all I say. That's all I say. Now, if the majority feels differently, I have no problem with it.
Point of inquiry, Madam Chair.
Point of inquiry, Member Brian.
My concern basically is consent decree has been written for some time, and I would like to ask since see that the attorney, and we usually ask the attorney general for advice according to the statute of 18 subsection 51. Have the Attorney General office, whether Mr. Salisbury, Attorney Salisbury, or Attorney Jacobs, or even Mr. Fraser, Mr. Van Slightman from the Solicitor General, ever met with you to go over compliance and these documents?
We met up to yesterday with
Attorney
Jacobs, the U.S. Attorney in the States, and myself. We have a telephone conference call because you cover absentee ballots went out. You have to check and let them know when they come back. And we talked again yesterday about that's why I thought Attorney Salisbury need to be on the phone with Attorney Jacobs. They again reminded us yesterday we need to submit a plan by the end of the month, just like Mr. Ross said. So I understand we could add some of the stuff that Mr. Washington is stating, but we have until, I mean, they gave us a second deadline, but we have to submit a plan.
But what-
I was on the phone up to yesterday.
What were they doing all the time when this was supposed to be? You, the supervisor, the law required a day to provide legal advice on the system.
Yeah,
So you spent with them Attorney Jacobs and you was on the phone with the U.S. attorney in the state, right? This section that Mr. Watson is speaking, what did they say about that?
Attorney Jacobs is who had draft part of this, and she put the
Well,
delegate
then
and
you
the
need to put that
government.
on the record so we can know that
Yeah,
it's Sheila and you. Because yeah, but they have to take responsibility because the law required that they provide advice to the board representative, because none of us going to the court today will have to come to justify and defend the board and you when there's a mistake or violation. Because if they can send the creep on for some time, they should have been working if that particular attorney assigned to assist. Should have been doing something, because I think that there's a distinct difference between all Bajans governors and not governors of the United States. They're territorial governors. The delegate of Congress holds a federal office, and that's the distinction that I see between our Bajan government and government bosses, the delegate of Congress. So I can call in some way with Mr. Watlington that section needs to be separated. But my question is to you, did the attorney Salisbury or Jacobs or the U.S. attorney made any reference to separate that concern?
No. Again, I'll go back to her, but this is what we looked at it, this is what she reviewed, and the timeline is what we put in. She left the blank for the hours and the days. I looked at it based on how realistic it is, so I put in the 3 days or the 4 days or the 48 hours in the back.
So your representation today that this is with the advice and approval and legal sufficiency from the Attorney General Jacobs.
Right. But like I said, I go back and I take out after the governor, which she has a point, and the delegate stuff is in there, but it has to be submitted. It can't, the plan is 1 page front and back, and it has to be submitted by the end of this month.
Motion?
Russ?
To accept it?
I move that the runoff election policy as prepared and submitted by the supervisor, the board would be adopted as policy.
Objection. Objection.
Objection, Member Bryan.
These documents are different. There is some question I'm asking Mrs. Fox to verify. When Mr. Watson was speaking basically over the assistant cast that this takes place before the runoff. So the runoff comes after the election. We addressed the two things simultaneously.
No.
Okay, so we
Stop
addressed
the
the
runoff,
runoff.
we're only doing
No, no, runoff.
004, yes, only the
Okay,
runoff.
so we do the runoff.
Both of those pages that are stapled together the same
I know.
page.
So Mrs. Fox, again, you are saying that this met the legal sufficiency and advice from the legal counsel of the Virgin.
That's correct. Like I said, I'll go back to her and say to take out the governor and lieutenant governor.
That's this what you're talking about.
No.
The same one?
Yeah, the second paragraph.
Well, then why can't we make a motion to remove them separately?
That's what I'm saying, that's what we need to do.
No, we have a motion. No,
I hear the motion.
A motion on the floor.
You want the second?
Second. You are on your objection?
My objection to the places is that if that is the case, and we already know that there's a concern, that we delay or remove the second, and then the appropriate time amend the section to appropriately address the concern. When we have to go back.
There's roll call on the motion, and then you can, the roll call is on the motion for acceptance of this as we're given 004, which is a runoff election.
Lawrence Larry Ashanti, absent. Harry Daniels, absent. Claudia Georges? Claudia Georges, yes. Lydia Hendricks?
Yes.
Lydia Hendricks, yes. Wilma Marsh Contanto?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Wilma Marsh Contanto, yes. Arturo Watlington, yes. Alicia Wells?
Yes.
Yes. Liliana Velarde O'Neill?
Yes.
Liliana Velarde O'Neill, yes. Adelbert Bryan?
No.
Adelbert Bryan, no. Rupert, I'm sorry. Lisa Moorhead, absent. Roland Molina? Roland Molina, no. Rupert Ross Jr.? Yes. Rupert Ross Jr., yes. Glenn Webster? Yes. Glenn Webster, yes. Raymond Williams, absent. Madam Chair, 8 yeas, 2 nays, 4 absent.
Motion, Madam Chair.
8 yeas, 2 nays. All right, this is adopted, and Member Bryan?
I would like to make a motion to correct the document that we just accepted. We consult and Mrs. Fox said she have to go back and ask them to remove. That would be the logical thing to do and waste more time.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Point of order.
Member Watlington?
Madam Chair.
We're taking up.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Mr. Bryan's motion is improper. He's asking for reconsideration of the motion. He was not on the prevailing side. He doesn't have the right to a reconsideration of the vote. That should be ruled out of order.
I'm ruling you out of order. On my attorney's advice.
No, I'm not your attorney.
But see, no problem, Madam Chair. I understand what you said, procedurally so. But if we're being honest with ourselves here, we agree that something needs to be corrected. We're here to correct it. Anybody to really say, so let Mr. Ross put the one that we prevailed.
Madam Chair.
Member Ross?
I don't. I heard the discussion as it relates to Governor and Lieutenant Governor, but as I read this document, I don't agree that the reference to that needs to be removed. Exactly. Because the policy seems to clearly state that the procedure for the runoff election will be consistent with the runoff election laws as authorized in Title 18, Chapter, etc., etc. I even inquired in the third paragraph whether or not shall be conducted and administered by the supervisor of election in the same manner as runoff election for the office of the governor. I'd like the board to note that in the case of a runoff election, the conduct and the administration of that election does not rest with the board. The law says it rests with the supervisor. And I also made that inquiry. So I from my vantage point, and I tend to disagree. I disagree with the supervisor on the issue. The reference to election procedure for the office of the governor is consistent with the policy and the authorization that we're talking about. I would like, in closing, to ask the chair, when this is transmitted, that the transmitter letter makes reference to what Member Watlington is stating, that even though we've established a policy, it has no impact on the 2014 election, because there will be no potential for a runoff. But that's in the transmitter letter, not the policy.
So taken, and we also have a, when you were out, Member Bryan made a note that whatever we did, that's what we did.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair.
Yes, Member Bryan.
The thing is, supervisor of election was arranged.
Was what?
Elections, primary, general election, and special election.
The supervisor was what he said?
Would arrange for these elections. The elections are conducted by the board of election. They supervise the board of election. It is not as simple as it sounds, because right to the things here says conducted and administered by supervised election in the same manner as runoff election in the office of the government. Who conducts the election to run off the government? Take the board. But I have to give them what I want to do, there's no problem. So how you going to start with that telling them something needs to be changed, you won't change it right here now. Keep coming, I call them. I know I did it in front, I watch them first.
All right, we're continuing now with the runoff.
Madam Chair, could you do, I just want if I could get a rearrangement of our listings of our names here. I want to be before Mr. Bryan when I'm voting. This have happened before. No, because you in private conversations with my wife talking, you crap. So I need to stop right now.
Who's your wife?
This gentleman over there.
Oh, so you said you, I just want you to know that. I don't even know your wife.
Right here on the record.
I don't know your wife.
I'm not talking to you.
Who said you?
Talking to this gentleman over here.
No, speaking to Madam Chair.
I am no yes person.
Excuse me, you said Madam Chair and then you. So please clarify, because I don't know who your wife is, and I would rather talk to them anyway. Oh,
discussion.
Excuse me. Excuse me. We're continuing the runoff policies. Boy. But you how come you just get me thinking about
I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness. That's a crazy
You judge it.
Brothers, voting system audit. Voting system audit. Voting system audit and
We don't have a quorum.
and casting of policy ballots.
Since we can't have a quorum call, and even if we don't have a quorum,
All right, we don't have a quorum, I'm ready to go.
There's no quorum.
There's no quorum, there's only a one.
Quorum.
The record speaks for itself.
So you have 2 members from the floor.
You'll see my wife already, two votes. Record speaks for itself. Look in record.
Member Ross, this minute is
I laugh and I snicker and all the time. All the time.
You can have a discussion.
All the time. A child. I laugh and I
Not
smile all the
outside
time.
over there for too long. Member Ross?
There was a quorum call.
Yeah, quorum call.
But I believe that some of the members are absent. May have just stepped outside for personal reasons. And I would suggest we recess in order to ascertain whether they plan to come back.
2-minute recess to ascertain whether the members who left are going to be here or they're standing outside and they'll be absent. 2 minutes. Get your people together. Member Brian, you're here. Thank you very much.
You want to know what? The way I know something wrong, I need to correct that. I'm correcting it.
Please get your members to come in, please, so we can continue on this.
Every time you say no and he say no, I laugh. Every time. No, it didn't say like that.
So then you complain when you say something.
Member Hendricks, you're the timekeeper. Okay.
I know something needs to be correct. I will still submit it. If we want to keep elections, I need to go away. Especially though that's simple stuff. We said, sir. That's what. I know what I'm saying. The public land have been changed. The congressional land changed those things. It was a government, lieutenant government, federal government, territorial government. So you know when you sit there, you know that. Who follow the same policy? As for government, no, because you can do it. You can schedule it run out. And who will kind of election? You can solidify the results to the board, right? So the board knows solidify it except you say it's in the run out. So they could change it right now, here and done. I know it's there, but we know that the board of election can't do the election. But we're using the code because the code makes reference to the district court, and we're telling you to go to the superior court because they can go into the district. We have said, but the code ain't changed. So if we know the code ain't changed, then we better do what the court says now. That's all. If we accept it, then we're right to it. I mean, this is what. Carly, if we know that the letter right, then we will write the letter. The way you transmit, if you love. I know that the transmission correspondence different in certain This is what I'm saying. That's what the commission. need to ask somebody, members, God, tell them no.
You got a tree here, right?
Which tree? We there here, no? We have 4 members here. They're missing trees.
They got one there.
Can't come up with my boss. Really eight.
No, but they're gonna put that in.
Yes, 7.
Yes, 7. They talk on the one. So you still gonna get anything to say? Until I'm making you should make this 2 o'clock.
If I may what?
2 o'clock.
Are you asking or telling?
I'm asking.
No.
Who making this 2 o'clock?
Well, you have to ask who made it.
That's why I ask you who did it.
I have a
Who made this agenda?
The agenda was made by the supervisor and board members.
No.
We need to,
So you're not finishing it by 3 because of what is it?
But we're ready to go.
Okay, so we have to finish by 3.
Paul Walker?
Bring up
But
that
they
new.
said out of us is one. It's away.
This is what I mean. You tell me who set the agenda?
We did.
We
The supervisor and the chair.
Which chair? That one right there?
No.
Which chair?
Chair of the joint board. All right, we need to get back in.
The 2 I set the agenda.
Yes.
From now on.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay. With input from whoever would say something.
We have to know what date to go to the meeting.
Oh, well,
this
that's
meeting was
never-
changed back and forth.
Very much so. It was supposed to be in St. Thomas.
And they were going to St. Quentin, and they were going to St. Thomas. So
This was a St.
we
Thomas
don't know
meeting.
it until we won't tell them input.
It was a St.
So then you
Thomas.
get input from any share.
Yes, just
Time-
call anytime.
Call it.
Call me and tell me what you think. We always send them it out. All right, we need to look at,
Madam Chairman, can I have the other 2 documents, please?
we need to,
We don't have no quorum.
you could have
Discussion. Whatever you want
We
now.
don't have a quorum, Madam Chair.
we could discuss, we're not voting. The number of general election ballots.
When they going to vote for something when they don't know?
Then we need to come into vote. We could discuss. Mr. Member Bonar needs a copy of.
I have.
You have it?
But there was
There's a one that says joint board. Joint board 006 is what we're discussing.
One time come back and
Yes. Yes.
what they tell?
006 is the one we're discussing.
Okay, I want to discuss in this, right? Persons with disabilities, right? According to the ADA, should be able to vote independently. So this part 2 was unlawful talking, having somebody blind or something. That's the ADA.
And we have the machine for the person
Exactly.
also.
A person that visually independently. A person who can read and write should be able to use the machine, the machine talk to them, and they should be able to then. So just,
So you're disagreeing with section 2?
yeah.
You know why though?
And
Why, what?
additionally, our policy is not a policy about sensitivity training for these poor workers.
Excuse me, I missed
It's
it.
not a policy for sensitivity training for the poor workers. Since we don't poor worker training to that, we need to bring Stephanie Barnes in to train some of them how to deal with the persons with disabilities.
We know the dilemma.
Member Brian, you're going to talk to Ms. Bartlett today?
I was concurring with Mr. Webster, except that myself and members in St. Croix and Mr. Alexander, we have already made recommendations rather than having this situation addressed. We have assembled one of those on the circular station. Inside there is a adjusted market access without a headset. We have a choice to independently mark the ballot without the system. So right in that circular area is red and blue, I believe it is. You just sit there, and again we have already made arrangements to utilize some tables that can be adjusted. The voters can roll right up with the wheelchair to the automatic machine. So the automatic machine is there. We've been doing it in the machine. As a matter of fact, sometime last week, we had a gentleman who's completely blind, he came there by himself and sat and voted. And I think we have a beat of that. But I'm saying what we need to do is to arrange for the government access station, Channel 6 and Channel 12, to get on the programs to basically explain to the people how this is done. And we can't get the legislature, and we can't get Channel 6, we can't get the channels at 11. The government access station is now 11, right? From Mr. Ackley, it's 12. Those are government stations, we could do that. But in St. Croix, we know Mr. Websites in the Kashi were part of the group. And we have been demonstrating machine, particularly to them. We know the sensitivity because everybody in a wheelchair, one of them rolling, telling them anything. They have the headset, the braille button is on the machine, they can hear the screen can black out, and they can move the volume up, down, English, Spanish, backward, forward, and they would hear with the headset. Even if you're standing there, you can't see how they vote.
Some of our members have actually blindfolded themselves and went through training and give them headset.
We actually had a person that is blind voted the machine.
Me too, in St. Thomas. I know that member Hendricks has been in contact with Felicia Brogler, the Center for Independent Living, to have training, sensitivity training. We normally have Ms. Brogler come to one of our training of either the judges, the monitors, the clerk, or whomever, to speak to it so that the persons who are, the judges who are in charge of the polling site will be sensitive because we've had a lot of complaints.
So what we did basically is that we want to, as Mr. Mullen, Mr. Webster is saying, be sensitive the way we speak, the way we handle, the way we address questions from the individuals, not to make them feel abused when they come there. And that's the intention that we're going to give that type of instruction in St. Croix. But
we've been giving it to him.
I'm sure if I were going to do the same thing, but what he's talking about is things we have already decided and address it.
Is what?
Been abided and trying to not violate what he's talking about.
I have a question.
Number what?
I have a number of questions in regard to this assistance of casting ballot policy. To Ms. Fox, through the chair. Ms. Fox, these policies that you're recommending is for generally you would suggest it for people with disability, correct?
Disabilities, and then you have folks that they say they can't read, have a language issue when you go to vote. So it's in general, I'm looking, this was something Florida had a sample I'm looking at, like I say, it's a draft, we have to make input and mark up on. But it's for both persons, whether disability or regular voters that may need assistance. No intelligence, so they will call it like that.
Okay. Okay, we agree that line 1 of number 2 is off. Paragraph 2, number 2. Yes. It shall be unlawful for any party to be in the voting booth with an elector.
You're striking the whole sentence or just the word unlawful?
Okay, you want to.
Can I expand on that?
Yeah.
I think the supervisor needs to look at section 585. The law clearly defines how someone can be sworn in by a judge to provide assistance to somebody in the booth.
Right. Because it does authorize it.
Correct.
Secondly,
so then before we move forward, you're striking the sentence
Or the word.
to the word elector.
Well, what Mr. Ross is